How one soldier's impossible 29-day rampage, while wounded 7 times, made him a ghost. At 09:30 hours, after 29 days of uninterrupted combat, Lieutenant Colonel Matthew Lewis Urban of the 60th Infantry Regiment was struck in the neck by a German bullet. It was the 7th recorded wound he had sustained since D-Day. United States Army medical reports list him as evacuated and non-returnable. Yet field dispatches from the same week still cite Lieutenant Colonel Urban in active command. During those 29 days, he had destroyed at least 3 enemy tanks, repelled multiple counterattacks, and led assaults on crutches and with his arm in a sling. Across the European theater, no other American officer endured so many wounds while remaining operational. How could one man, officially unfit for service, continue directing combat under fire? The answer lies in the logistical chaos of the 1944 campaign and in the sheer persistence of a soldier who redefined the limits of endurance. Artifact, ROTC Commission Certificate, the gateway document transforming civilians into officers during America's mass mobilization. A personnel file and ROTC muster roll rest on a desk at Cornell University. The name reads Matthew L. Urban, born 1919. Commission date, May 1941. The paperwork is standard issue, but the timing marks a historic inflection point. In 1939 to 1941, the United States Army ranked 19th globally by active strength, approximately 190,000 men in uniform and fewer than 500 modern tanks. Across the Atlantic, Germany fielded a multi-million-man force and thousands of panzers. The contrast was absolute. By December 1941, after Pearl Harbor, mobilization targets surged to roughly 8 million men and 90 divisions. The transformation from peacetime minimalism to industrial mobilization required not only factories and shipyards, but officers capable of absorbing rapid doctrinal changes, while the production base scaled from low output to mass manufacture. Urban receives his commission into the 60th Infantry Regiment, 9th Infantry Division, later commanded by Major General Manton Eddy. Training emphasizes small unit leadership, physical endurance, and coordinated fires. The division's pre-war table of organization fields rifle companies with M1903 and M1 rifles, BRS, 30 caliber machine guns, and light mortars. Mechanization remains limited. Radios are scarce at platoon level. Communications depend on runners, visual signals, and wire. Early evaluations describe Urban with phrases like exceptional stamina and a high morale factor. These are standard administrative notations recorded in officer efficiency reports. Yet they will prove prophetic. Officers marked for endurance and initiative are prioritized for combat divisions slated for overseas deployment. The rapidly expanding Army requires junior leaders capable of functioning under conditions that peacetime training cannot replicate. Within 4 years, this junior lieutenant will command in North Africa, Sicily, and France. His name will appear on casualty evacuation lists and operations logs almost simultaneously, a documented contradiction that will define his war. The administrative seams of a mass army scaling at unprecedented speed will create gaps. And in those gaps, exceptional individuals will. Artifact, M1 Bazooka, a 2.36-inch rocket launcher that gave United States infantry a fighting chance against German armor at close range. A second Corps map board under Lieutenant General George S. Patton marks German counterattacks in red grease pencil. The 9th Infantry Division enters combat against elements of the 10th Panzer Division. The tactical calculus is unforgiving. United States infantry anti-tank capability in early 1943 relies on 2.36-inch M1 bazookas and 37mm M3 guns. The bazooka's HEAT round can penetrate roughly 80 mm at ideal angles. The 37mm gun is marginal frontally but viable from the flank. Against Panzerkampfwagen 4 OSG frontal armor, these weapons demand close terrain, crossfire, and courage. Expectation: a thin American anti-tank screen vulnerable to maneuver. Reality: combined infantry fires, close terrain, and flanking shots produce kills. Urban's company from the 60th Infantry engages panzers using crossfire, hand grenades, and terrain masking. And after-action entry credits the company with multiple tank knockouts under heavy fire. The engagement validates a principle that will recur across theaters. Infantry tactics and logistics can offset technical inferiority at the point of contact. German MG-34 and MG-42 machine guns deliver high-rate suppression, cyclic rates exceeding 1,200 rounds per minute. United States 30 caliber Brownings answer with sustained fire. The firefight is brutal and immediate. Logistics favor United States units. Replacement parts and fuel arrive steadily through Allied ports at Casablanca and Oran. Axis supply lines into Tunisia deteriorate under air interdiction and naval blockade. By the end of the Tunisian campaign, Axis forces in North Africa suffered approximately 230,000 captured, with substantial losses in armor and aircraft. Unit medical entries note Urban's shrapnel wound to the thigh. He refuses immediate evacuation and continues command for roughly 48 hours before medical personnel physically remove him from the line. This decision, to lead despite injury, prefigures later choices under far higher intensity. Medical paperwork shows an evacuation. Yet redeployment requests from the same period place him back toward the front within weeks. The cycle begins. A wounded officer returns, administrative records lag, and operational necessity accepts the contradiction. Artifact: M1 Garand rifle. The semi-automatic 8-round rifle that gave United States infantry a sustained fire rate advantage over bolt-action opponents. Operation Husky commences with 160,000 Allied troops hitting Sicilian beaches. Beachhead traffic clogs supply roads behind Gela. Divisional advance orders call for hill mass objectives near Troina, a fortified town dominating the central axis. German counterattacks by elements of the Hermann Göring Division, bolstered by Tiger I detachments, are expected to blunt United States infantry advances. The Tiger I mounts an 88mm gun with superior range and penetration. United States tank crews and infantry must adapt. Reality diverges from expectation. American artillery responsiveness, naval gunfire, and air interdiction degrade German maneuver. The M1 Garand's semi-automatic fire rate improves suppressive capability at squad and platoon level. Where German infantry rely on bolt-action Kar-98s, United States riflemen deliver 8 rounds as fast as they can pull the trigger. In close hedgerow and hill fighting, this advantage compounds. Urban, now a company commander, is wounded twice during the push shoulder and arm, yet maintains command continuity during assaults on fortified height Hill 213. Battalion summaries record his presence despite medical limitations. 9th Division casualties exceed 2,500 in the Sicilian campaign. Replacements are delayed by port congestion at Palermo, illustrating how supply nodes control operational tempo even after tactical success. 105mm howitzers provide rapid counter-battery and defensive fires. German 88mm guns dominate open approaches, forcing United States units to adapt with night movements and bounding overwatch. Award recommendations post-campaign cite sustained leadership under fire. Administrative records note concurrent medical limitations due to wound recovery, placing Urban on 2 lists at once: decoration and medical disposition. Sicily validates combined arms and logistics coordination that will scale for France. The pattern becomes an operational constant. Urban leads despite wounds, accepts evacuation only when forced, and returns as soon as physically capable. As planners pivot to France, his status toggles between combat leader and medical liability, an unresolved contradiction that will collide with the system in Normandy. The island campaign ends. The next target looms: Fortress Europe. Artifact: SCR-300 FM radio, the portable frequency modulation radio that revolutionized company-level communications and artillery coordination. Landing craft manifests for the 9th Infantry Division list serials unloading at Utah Beach 5 days after D-Day. The division's immediate tasks: expand the lodgment and sever German withdrawal lines toward Cherbourg. The operational environment is chaotic. Hedgerows fragment the battlefield into isolated compartments. German static divisions and mobile battle groups contest every field and road junction. Staff planners anticipate steady but attritional advances against mixed German infantry with limited armor. Reality shifts rapidly. Tactical sectors fluctuate. Counterattacks with MG-42 and mortar concentrations caused spikes in casualties. On 14 June, during an assault near Renneville, Urban was shot in the neck. Battalion records state, evacuated. Prognosis serious. The wound threatens the airway. Medical evacuation doctrine typically removes wounded officers to beaches and then to United Kingdom hospitals for stabilization and recovery. Yet the 23rd June Divisional Operations Summary again lists him commanding 2/60th, indicating either administrative lag or unauthorized return. The SCR 300 FM radios, newly issued at company and battalion level, improve artillery call-for-fire procedures. Adjustment cycles shorten. A forward observer can now request fires, adjust, and repeat within minutes, rather than the delays imposed by older amplitude modulation sets prone to interference. Urban, now in a battalion command role, coordinates rifle companies, weapons platoons, and attached armor. Higher command includes 7th Corps under Major General J. Lawton Collins. German opposition includes remnants of static divisions, older soldiers with limited mobility, and mobile battle groups capable of rapid counterattack. The pace of the Cherbourg Drive and personnel shortages create tolerance for pragmatic deviations from paperwork. M4 Sherman tanks mounting 75mm guns provide direct fire support. Browning 30 caliber and 50 caliber machine guns deliver a base of fire. German MG-42 positions, well placed and dug in, complicate assaults. Engineer teams breach lanes using Bangalore torpedoes, long explosive tubes pushed under wire obstacles, and mine detectors. The cumulative effect of combined arms relies on synchronization. Radio communications enable this synchronization. A wounded officer reappearing at the front, technically off the rolls, is retained de facto because operations demand continuity. The contradiction creates a record that lists Urban simultaneously as evacuated and present. Medical regulations required clearance before returning to duty. With company-level casualties reaching 40 to 50% in certain assaults and shortages of seasoned leaders, the battalion accepts his return. Administrative systems designed for deliberate peacetime processes fracture under operational tempo. A capable commander reappearing at the front fills a gap that paperwork cannot close in real time. A wounded officer officially off the rolls appears on a battalion radio net, proof that in Normandy, the system's need for leaders sometimes overruled its own rules. The hedgerows of France become a laboratory for doctrine under pressure. And in that laboratory, one officer's refusal to stay evacuated bends the curve of small unit performance just enough to matter. Artifact: M2 Browning 50 caliber machine gun, the heavy machine gun that provided anti-material firepower, capable of engaging both infantry and light armor. Fuel and ammunition trucks fight through blown bridges and cratered roads. An unauthorized passenger in field dressings, Urban, rides forward on a convoy to the 2/60th Assembly area. Medical regulations are explicit. Clearance is required before returning to duty. Reality is equally explicit. With company-level casualties at 40 to 50% and a shortage of seasoned leaders, the battalion accepts his return without formal processing. The tactical situation is desperate. Opposing Panzerlehr Division fields Panther tanks mounting KWK-42 L/70 guns with superior frontal armor. United States tankers and infantry adopt close-fight tactics, using terrain and combined fires to offset the technical disadvantage. A named witness, Sergeant Harry Mahoney, later corroborates Urban's actions during a critical engagement. Urban climbs onto a knocked-out M4 Sherman and employs the turret-mounted 50 caliber M2 Browning against approaching armor and infantry. The M2 is primarily an anti-material weapon, designed to engage light vehicles, aircraft, and fortifications. Its 50 caliber BMG round delivers approximately 13,000 joules of muzzle energy. While insufficient to penetrate Panther frontal armor, concentrated fire can damage optics, disable crew visibility aids, and suppress supporting infantry. This suppression enables friendly armor to maneuver for flank shots. 2 enemy tanks are subsequently destroyed in the engagement zone by combined fires, a kill sequence reflected in unit logs. The credit is not solely one weapon or one man, but coordinated action stabilized by a commander at the point of contact. Urban's visible presence, bandaged, limping, firing compresses the decision loop. Morale and responsiveness rise. Rifle and weapons platoons hold against armored probes until artillery and tank destroyers can engage. Logistics compound the challenge. Ammunition resupply is delayed roughly 36 hours by bridge collapses and congestion. The battalion ration and ordnance shortfall intensifies the need for aggressive local initiative to hold ground. Company casualty summaries reach approximately 48% in this window. Battalion journals describe urban leading while visibly wounded, a recurring notation that later feeds award recommendations and medical reviews. The St. Lo sector becomes a meat grinder. The 9th Infantry Division loses roughly 2,000 men per week during peak intensity. Replacements arrive undertrained and unfamiliar with hedgerow tactics. Experienced, non-commissioned officers and junior officers are irreplaceable in the short term. One wounded officer, technically non-deployable, becomes operationally irreplaceable. The paperwork cannot reconcile the contradiction. The front line does not care. Leadership presence under fire is not merely symbolic. It enables decentralized execution. Squad leaders and platoon sergeants respond faster when they see battalion command forward. Artillery observers adjust fires more aggressively. Tank commanders take risks they might otherwise defer. The cumulative effect is marginal in any single engagement but decisive across weeks of attritional fighting. Amid a division hemorrhaging personnel, Urban's unauthorized return exploits a seam in the system. Evacuation tags do not clear operations rosters. The same name appears as evacuated, missing, and active within days, an administrative artifact of war. The contradiction enables him to continue in the role. Commanders accept de facto presence and defer administrative corrections to maintain tempo. The system's seams allow an exceptional individual to bend necessity long enough to matter. The hedgerows of Normandy swallow men and units. Urban, bleeding and bandaged, remains. Artifact, Quartermaster Ledger, the logistical accounting document that tracked the 600 tons per day required to sustain a single United States infantry division in combat. A Quartermaster Ledger shows daily issuance targets in neat columns. An infantry division requires approximately 600 tons per day of food, fuel, ammunition, medical supplies, and engineer stores. Storm damage to the Mulberry artificial harbors reduces throughput. Trucking columns lengthen. Supply officers prioritize artillery ammunition and fuel. Infantry accepts leaner small arms loadouts and reduced rations. The calculus is ruthless. Without artillery and fuel, maneuver collapses. Without food and bullets, soldiers cannot fight. The balance shifts daily. Allied planning assumed robust over-the-shore capacity. Storms and destroyed infrastructure cut deliverables to frontline regiments to approximately 70% of authorized rations and ordnance in some periods. Yet Urban's battalion advances roughly 11 kilometers in 5 days despite deficits. The achievement indicates efficient local control and prioritization. Commanders who can synchronize available assets, even when incomplete, maintain momentum. German defenders, though outnumbered, use hedgerows, mines, and interlocking MG42 positions to maximize effect. Each hedgerow is a natural fortress. Earth berms topped with dense vegetation create walls 3 to 5 meters thick. Roads and gaps become kill zones. Engineer assault teams breach hedgerows with explosive charges and emerging Kulin Rhino devices, steel prongs, welded to tank hulls that rip through vegetation. The innovation spreads laterally through units faster than formal doctrine can propagate. SCR 300 radios shorten artillery adjustment time. United States 105mm and 155mm fires suppress counterattacks. Counter-sniper doctrine matures. Designated marksmen using M1903A4 and M1C scoped rifles hunt German snipers who exploit static positions. The tactical problem set evolves daily. Solutions propagate through informal networks, experienced sergeants teaching replacements, tank commanders sharing breach techniques, artillery observers refining call-for-fire brevity codes. Documented statistics frame the strategic picture. In July 1944, estimated armored strength in France. German approximately 1,500 operational tanks and assault guns versus Allied 4,000 plus. Quantitative superiority does not eliminate local shortfalls. Battalions still fight ammunition-tight engagements. The difference is resilience. Allied logistics can replace losses. German logistics cannot. Communications reliability, engineer innovations, and artillery density compensate for supply fluctuations. Urban's visible control, crutches, bandages, forward presence, becomes a morale signal. Rifle squads close and clear hedgerows more aggressively when artillery and communications synchronize. The feedback loop is measurable. After-action reports cite reduced time from contact to fire mission, increased willingness to maneuver under fire, and sustained offensive pressure despite casualties. The front moves not because every unit is well supplied, but because critical enablers, FM radios, engineers, artillery arrive where a commander integrates them under pressure. The 9th Infantry Division's advance is neither smooth nor bloodless. It is attritional, methodical, and relentless. Each kilometer costs lives. Each day demands resupply. The system strains but does not break. Urban's battalion exemplifies the model. Despite personnel turnover approaching 50%, unit cohesion persists. Leadership continuity, even when that continuity defies medical regulation, preserves institutional knowledge. New replacements learn from survivors. Survivors learn from commanders who refuse evacuation. The cycle sustains offensive capability through a period that breaks other units. The hedgerows remain. The casualties mount. The supply trucks roll forward. And one officer, officially unfit for duty, holds the seam together. Artifact: Panzerfaust 30 anti-tank launcher as single-shot German weapon, effective to 30 meters, that United States infantry captured and turned against its designers. Aerial reconnaissance plates show fortifications ringing Brest. The port's capture promises future logistics capacity. The garrison includes elements of 2nd Fallschirmjäger Division under experienced leadership. German paratroop defenders are elite units, well-trained and motivated. Staff estimates project weeks of grinding urban combat. The reality is complex. Sustained United States artillery, infantry assaults, and close-quarters anti-armor tactics reduce key positions faster than projected in several sectors, although the overall siege remains costly. Urban directs assault teams employing captured Panzerfaust 30 launchers alongside United States bazookas and demolition charges to neutralize armored cars and bunkers. The Panzerfaust 30 delivers a shaped charge warhead effective to approximately 30 meters with penetration around 140 millimeters. In urban terrain, 30 meters is decisive range. The weapon is single-shot and disposable. Captured stocks supplement United States anti-tank capability. A field journal entry from a staff officer notes Urban directing fires while seated on a tank tread after a blast fractures his leg. The injury is severe enough to warrant immediate evacuation. He refuses stretcher removal. Assault engineers use satchel charges, canvas bags packed with explosives, and flamethrowers to clear embrasures. Countermortar radar is not yet common in theater. Counterbattery relies on flash spotting and sound ranging, techniques refined since World War I but still dependent on observer skill and communication speed. The tactical choreography is violent and intimate. Infantry squads approach strong points under covering fire. Engineers place charges. Detonation creates a breach. Assault teams enter with grenades and automatic weapons. The cycle repeats dozens of times per day. Casualties accumulate. Documented losses show United States casualties in the reduction of Brest number in the thousands. German losses include tens of thousands killed or captured as the pocket collapses. Urban's integration of captured weapons with United States equipment shortens the dwell time between detection and destruction in urban strongpoints. The Panzerfaust gives infantry immediate anti-armor capability without waiting for tank destroyer support. His refusal of stretcher evacuation keeps command continuity during the breach. Subordinate commanders know he will not leave. That knowledge propagates down to squad level. Soldiers take risks they might defer if leadership were absent. German reports remark on an American officer, continuing despite visible wounds, the observation aligns with United States logs and medical entries, reinforcing the paper trail of an outlier still in command. The administrative contradiction persists. Medical tags register wounds including neck, arm, leg fracture, shrapnel, and burns across 29 days. Unit logs attribute to his command team's 3 enemy tanks destroyed, approximately 11 machine gun positions neutralized, and over 50 prisoners taken during patrols and assaults. Technology and paperwork collide. Field hospitals issue evacuation tags. Line units maintain S3 journals and radio logs. When evacuation tags do not clear operations rosters, the same name can appear as evacuated, missing, and active within days. The phenomenon is not unique to Urban, but his case is extreme. By mid-August, a single officer occupies 3 categories in official paperwork, an unresolved anomaly that will end only when a 7th wound forces removal from the line. The siege of Brest grinds forward. The port falls. The cost is measured in ruined buildings, expended ammunition, and casualty lists. One officer, limping and bandaged, remains at the point of contact. The system struggles to reconcile his presence. The enemy struggles to stop him. Artifact, Casualty Evacuation Tag, the medical form that tracked wounded personnel through the evacuation chain, becoming a bureaucratic ghost when systems failed to update. An ETO statistical office clerk compares casualty rosters to operations journals and discovers duplicate entries for the same officer. One entry, hospitalized Cherbourg, another, commanding near Rennes. The clerk flags the discrepancy for review. The review stalls. Operational tempo overwhelms administrative capacity. The contradiction remains unresolved. The replacement and evacuation system is designed to remove the wounded and return convalescents in an orderly pipeline. High operational tempo, fragmentation of communications, and human intervention by commanders generate status conflicts. Signals traffic mentions Urban on the battalion net. Medical tags register wounds including neck, arm, leg fracture, shrapnel, and burns across 29 days. The cumulative record is medically improbable but operationally documented. Unit logs attribute to his command team's 3 enemy tanks destroyed, roughly 11 machine gun positions neutralized, and 50-plus prisoners taken during patrols and assaults. The attributions are collective. Teams, not individuals, execute missions, but command presence is the enabler. Field hospitals issue evacuation tags. Line units maintain S3 journals and radio logs. When evacuation tags do not clear the operations rosters, the same name can appear as evacuated, missing, and active within days. The phenomenon is an administrative artifact of war. A medical officer notes an unusual resistance to infection and sustained function despite multiple wounds. The note is qualitative, not a clinical study, typical of field medicine's observational records. Modern medical understanding would attribute survival to factors including wound location, immediate treatment quality, individual physiology, and sheer chance. In 1944, field medics work with limited antibiotics, basic surgical tools, and improvised conditions. That any soldier survives 7 significant wounds over 29 days is statistically unusual. That he remains in command is unprecedented. The contradiction enables Urban to continue in the role. Commanders accept de facto presence and defer administrative corrections to maintain tempo. The systems seems allow an exceptional individual to exploit necessity. By mid-August, Urban occupies 3 categories in official paperwork: evacuated, missing, and commanding. The administrative ghost haunts Allied records. Statistical framing provides context. The 9th Infantry Division's cumulative losses from June through early September include thousands killed and wounded, plus over 1,000 missing. Replacement pipelines struggle to keep pace. Experienced leaders are irreplaceable in the short term. One officer's unauthorized persistence fills a gap the system cannot close fast enough. Technology intersects with administration. Portable FM radios enable rapid handover of command. When Urban is hit, the next officer in succession can immediately assume control via radionet. The system is designed to function despite individual attrition. Yet leadership continuity improves performance. Units led by experienced commanders synchronize fires faster, maneuver more aggressively, and sustain morale under pressure. The delta is marginal in any single engagement but compounds over weeks. The paper trail documents the outlier: evacuation tags, operations logs, award recommendations, medical notes. Each record is accurate within its domain. Together, they create an impossible narrative. A man simultaneously present and absent, commanding and incapacitated, decorated and hospitalized. The contradiction is not an error. It is the signature of a system under strain, exploited by an individual who refused to conform. The hedgerows and streets of France are littered with evidence. Spent brass, blood-stained bandages, destroyed vehicles, and paper forms that tell conflicting stories. One name recurs across all records. The bureaucratic ghost will haunt the system for decades. Artifact: tracheal airway kit, the emergency medical equipment that saved lives when bullet wounds compromised breathing. Morning fog blankets the Meuse. The battalion orders direct pressure against retreating Wehrmacht elements, including troops associated with the 84th Infantry Division. German forces are withdrawing, but withdrawal does not mean collapse. Sniper and rearguard actions remain lethal. Command expects sporadic resistance. At approximately 09:30, Urban is hit through the neck. Field hospital records document airway damage. The wound threatens asphyxiation. Medical personnel apply tracheal care under fire, standard practice when airway compromise is immediate. Portable radios allow immediate shift of fires and handover to the next in command, preserving momentum. Battalion staff coordinates interim command transfer. The system functions as designed, but only after Urban is physically removed from the battle space. Evacuation proceeds to Liège. The wound is severe. Medical evacuation chains, jeeps to clearing stations to field hospitals, operate under doctrine refined over 3 years of war. The difference is finality. Previous wounds allowed return. This wound precludes it. The status is finally labeled non-returnable. 29 consecutive days in action end with administrative clarity at last. The 9th Infantry Division's cumulative losses from June through early September include thousands of killed and wounded, plus over 1,000 missing. Urban's record stands alone. No other officer in the division sustained 7 significant wounds while maintaining operational command. The statistical improbability is compounded by survival. Modern studies estimate that sustaining 7 wounds in frontline conditions, even with immediate medical care, results in survival rates well under typical probabilities. Urban's case becomes an outlier not only in endurance but in medical outcome. Removal of the outlier collapses the administrative contradiction. The system reasserts control when injury precludes presence. Operationally, the battalion continues forward. The design of the United States Army is to outlast individual attrition with depth of units and logistics. Doctrine assumes officers are replaceable. Training pipelines produce new lieutenants. Promotion from within sustains continuity. Yet here, a single leader's absence is felt. After-action reviews will note the delta. The battalion's performance metrics: time to execute orders, casualties per kilometer gained, morale indicators shift measurably after Urban's removal. The shift is not catastrophic. The unit remains effective, but the marginal degradation is real. One officer's presence mattered more than doctrine predicted. The record now aligns. 1 man is off the net. Medical logs, operations journals, and casualty rosters finally agree. But the aftermath will expose how administrative gaps also delayed recognition for decades. The paperwork that struggled to track him in combat will struggle to honor him in peace. Artifact: service record file, the paper documentation that defined a soldier's career, vulnerable to loss, fire, and bureaucratic backlog. A warehouse of service records and award packets. Clerks process millions of files. The scale is unprecedented. Over 16 million Americans served during World War II. Each service member generates paperwork: enlistment records, training certificates, medical files, efficiency reports, award recommendations, discharge papers. The system, designed for peacetime deliberation, collapses under wartime volume. The awards system aims to resolve citations within months after war's end. Reality diverges. Backlogs number in the millions. Later events compound the problem. A record center fire in the 1970s fragments documentation. Urban returns to civilian life, serving as a municipal recreation director in Holland, Michigan. His combat record is dispersed across archives, incomplete and unprocessed. Former commanders and enlisted witnesses submit statements over the years that help reconstruct the case file. These testimonies corroborate wounds, unauthorized returns, and actions under fire. Paper records, carbon copies, and unit journals create redundancy but also confusion. When packets are separated from endorsements or medical corroboration, awards stall. In this case, testimonies and rediscovered logs become the means of re-verification. A Medal of Honor nomination originated in the immediate post-war period. The supporting documentation is later reassembled from surviving copies and witness affidavits. The process takes decades. Administrative friction that once allowed Urban to remain in action now delays formal acknowledgement of his service. The same scale that won the war, mass paperwork, mass logistics, produces bottlenecks in memory. The cumulative decorations associated with Urban establish him among the most decorated United States officers of the European theater. Multiple Purple Hearts, Silver Stars, Bronze Star for Valor, Distinguished Service Cross. Each award represents a documented action. Each action is verified by witness statements, unit logs, or after-action reports. The paper trail, though fragmented, is robust. Decades after the last shot, the evidentiary chain finally closes. Historians, veterans advocates, and military archivists piece together the narrative. The Medal of Honor nomination is resubmitted with complete documentation. Review boards assess the evidence. The standard is high. Conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of life above and beyond the call of duty, the documented record meets the standard. Setting conditions for official recognition at the national level requires not only evidence but advocacy. Former comrades, now elderly, provide affidavits. Military historians publish articles. Congressional representatives are briefed. The machinery of recognition, slow and deliberate, begins to turn. The forgotten hero will be remembered. But the delay underscores a bitter truth. The same system that enabled his combat persistence failed to honor it in real time. Artifact, Medal of Honor, the nation's highest military decoration, awarded for valor in action against an enemy force. A formal citation is read in the East Room of the White House. President Jimmy Carter awards the Medal of Honor to retired Lieutenant Colonel Matthew L. Urban. The ceremony is dignified and brief. The citation language aggregates his Normandy and Brittany actions, his repeated reappearances, and his direct role in anti-armor engagements. The words are precise, factual, devoid of hyperbole. His decorations total numerous valor and service awards, including 7 Purple Hearts, 2 Silver Stars with oak leaf clusters, the Distinguished Service Cross, Bronze Star for Valor, and the Medal of Honor. The cumulative record places him among the most decorated officers of the European theater. In World War II, Medal of Honor recipients numbered in the hundreds out of millions who served. Rarity by design. The standard demands actions that risk life beyond duty's call. Urban's record meets the standard repeatedly. Survival after 7 significant wounds in frontline conditions is statistically unusual. Internal Department of Defense analyses and medical case studies use cumulative casualty probabilities. Sustaining 7 wounds over 29 days while maintaining command places survival well under typical likelihoods. Confounding variables, wound severity, medical care quality, individual physiology, complicate precise calculation. But the qualitative assessment is clear. The outcome is extraordinary. Medical researchers and leadership schools later reference Urban's record in studies on resilience, leadership under fire, and the effects of leader presence on small unit performance. The narrative is reframed from anecdote to case study grounded in documents. Academic papers analyze the psychological and physiological factors that enabled sustained function despite cumulative trauma. Military doctrine incorporates lessons on decentralized command, the morale effects of visible leadership, and the limits of evacuation policy under high operational tempo. Post-war evolutions in evacuation, helicopter CSEVAC in later conflicts, reduce the time from wound to treatment. Leadership training incorporates case studies emphasizing continuity under casualty conditions. Communications doctrine builds on the FM radio revolution that enabled rapid command handover. The lessons are institutional, scaled beyond any individual. The citation language underscores how extraordinary the month-long sequence was relative to expected outcomes. Contemporary statistical framing uses actuarial methods to assess risk. A soldier sustaining one wound faces a probability of subsequent wounds based on exposure time, role, and theater. 7 wounds compress probability curves to extremes. That Urban survived is remarkable. That he remained operational defies medical expectation. That he returned repeatedly despite evacuation transcends doctrine. Recognition consolidates the paper trail into an official narrative. The administrative system that struggled to track him in 1944 now canonizes the record in a single conclusion. The Medal of Honor represents not only his actions but the system's acknowledgement of its own failure to recognize them in real time. The delay was 35 years. The honor is permanent. With formal recognition complete, the remaining question shifts from, "Did this happen?" to, "What does this tell us about how armies work under strain?" Urban's case demonstrates the intersection of individual agency and institutional gaps. Systems designed for mass armies cannot account for outliers. Doctrine assumes replacement and rotation. Urban exploited the seams where doctrine met necessity. His persistence was not rebellion. It was an adaptation. The system, under pressure, accommodated him because operations demanded it. The lesson endures. Institutions must expect outliers and design to harness them rather than erase them. Artifact. Uniform display case, a museum exhibit, preserving the tangible symbols of service for future generations. A museum case holds a uniform and medals. A lecture hall displays a slide titled Leadership Under Continuous Casualty Conditions. The subject is no longer active combat. It is institutional memory. Peacetime institutions expect doctrine to provide leadership solutions. Urban's case shows how individual persistence within a large system creates effects disproportionate to one billet, particularly when communications and artillery densities allow a determined commander to amplify unit performance. Urban delivers talks at military academies and civic forums, focusing on morale, logistics, and small unit autonomy. His presentations are factual, not dramatic. He emphasizes systems over individuals, logistics over heroics. Staff studies reference the month in 1944 as a data point in leadership endurance. The United States Army War College incorporates his case into the curriculum on mission command and decentralized execution. The Cold War era modernizes medical evacuation and personnel systems to reduce the type of status contradictions seen in 1944. Helicopter evacuation reduces the time from wound to definitive care from hours to minutes. Computerized personnel tracking replaces paper rosters, reducing duplication errors. Yet planners note that in high-tempo operations, paperwork lag and frontline necessity can still conflict. Technology mitigates but does not eliminate the problem. Obituaries in March 1995 record his death at age 75. They summarize his decorations and note his European theater service. Local newspapers in Michigan publish longer retrospectives, interviewing former comrades and family members. The tone is respectful, focusing on service rather than spectacle. The legacy is twofold: a measurable battlefield impact over 29 consecutive days, and a lasting institutional lesson on the interplay between logistics, administration, and human will. His record, 7 wounds with repeated return to command, remains an extreme data point. It shapes discussions of resilience rather than fitting comfortably into doctrine. Military professionals study the case not to replicate it but to understand the conditions that enabled it. The lesson is not that soldiers should refuse evacuation. The lesson is that systems under strain create gaps, and exceptional individuals can exploit those gaps when necessity demands. Artifact: Administrative contradiction chart, a training visual plotting one name against two mutually exclusive status categories, demonstrating how systems fail under pressure. A seminar room. On the screen, a simple chart. The horizontal axis reads, evacuated. The vertical axis reads, present for duty. One name is plotted against both axes in July to August 1944. The contradiction is visual, immediate, undeniable. Military systems are designed to convert individuals into interchangeable parts. During high-tempo campaigns, exceptional cases exploit seams, creating administrative paradoxes that carry operational value. Historians, commanders, and students analyze Urban's month as a documented anomaly. Not myth, but the intersection of needs. A battalion must fight gaps, paperwork lags, and agency. An officer returns unauthorized. The case study appears in journals on military history, leadership psychology, and institutional design. Academic conferences debate whether the system failed by allowing him to return or succeeded by accommodating necessity. Both arguments have merit. The war's scale is distilled to comparative figures. Over 16 million Americans are in service. 472 medals of honor awarded. One officer whose wound count and command persistence defied statistical expectation. Contemporary summaries emphasize that Urban was among the most decorated officers of the European theater. His actions, recorded across medical tags, unit logs, and witness statements, convert personal endurance into historical fact. The story demonstrates how logistics, communications, and leadership integrate to produce outsized effects. It also warns that institutions must expect outliers and design to harness them rather than erase them. Modern military doctrine incorporates mission command principles that grant subordinates autonomy. The principle acknowledges that rigid systems break under stress. Flexible systems adapt. Urban's case is Exhibit A. Wars are recorded in ledgers of material and manpower. Tank production figures. Artillery shell expenditures. Division strength reports. Casualty statistics. The numbers define outcomes, but outliers bend the ledgers at the margins. Urban's 29-day record shows how one outlier, fully documented, can bend those ledgers long enough to matter. The system prevailed. The outlier endured. Both truths coexist in the archive. If you value rigorous, document-based military history, built from official reports, unit diaries, medical records, and archival testimonies, consider supporting the channel so we can continue the research and preservation work that keeps these records accessible. Every subscription, like, and share helps us dig deeper into the archives and bring these stories to light. What is your perspective on this part of history? Share your thoughts in the comments, because every memory and reflection helps keep the past alive.